Hi folks.
Hello.
You might have noticed that we didn't drop last week, but because we had like a really weird technical issue with our mics. Yeah, well, not on anyone's fault really. It's just
no one's fault.
The laptop. We basically normally record on a laptop, and it kind of made it sound very watery, and it didn't even save. So we had nothing. So you lost half an hour of goodness. So this week we're gonna play catch up a little bit. Talk a bit about Christmas and a few other things. So Davey's going to kick it off with his latest mask.
I've got an obsession with masks, haven't I? No, I think it was interesting this week, and I was hoping this week to kind of observe on Tuesday what the take up of people wearing masks, because it's supposed to be mandatory now. It was quite good, but there was still some people who were absolutely confused. Came on, and I don't think it's the people that I have a problem with. It's the drivers, because the drivers don't enforce it. And
couldn't they realistically enforce it?
Well, they could just ask
every time.
No, they could just ask.
Yeah.
I mean, because the majority of people now are wearing them, but some people in the first couple of days were unaware. Especially younger people were totally unaware.
Well, the broadcast they put out here said there's been a change in guidance. Please log into Moodle. And I'm like, just put what the guidance is in the email.
Seriously, is that what it was? I didn't see that. That's pathetic.
Because I actually wrote back and said, just put students are now required to wear masks.
Yeah.
They didn't have that. They had, the guidance has changed. Please log into Moodle. I'm like, that's a barrier to entry. That's like, people who see that, you're going to lose like almost all.
Exactly. Again, it's not thought out.
No.
And it was interesting. I was on a bus this week where it was absolutely heaving. People were wearing masks and they just were not. And then I got into a bit of a tussle with someone over the window, because all the windows were open and this guy.
Pedestrians.
Well, no, this guy just shut the bloody window, and he didn't care. He didn't have a mask on either, and it's a little bit of a tough thing. He's a student actually, so I kind of just looked at him and said something, and he just shut back. And I thought there's going to be a fight here, but I managed to calm down. Because I think the trouble I have, I've been talking to some other students about this and staff, is that for some people like me, their anxiety is heightened when you've got that situation, co-packed, and you're standing up, and then someone does that, and you can see, like with road rage and stuff, when these things start escalating, can't you?
Mask rage.
Well, mask rage, that's what we're calling it now. Mask rage.
Mage.
Let's call it Mage. Let's go to camera. Call it Mage, yeah. But I mean, this is the thing. But I mean,
that's now trademark, guys. Mage.
Mask
rage.
Mask rage, Mage. But I mean, the other thing that annoyed me this week was that, again, it's this half-hearted take-up by shops. Most shops will obviously encourage you to wear a mask, but then you've got Sainsbury's at one end will have people there to encourage you when you go through, but Asda and Lidl don't give a toss. I said I get PTSD when I go into Asda now. I won't go in there because it's so.
That's how people experience Asda normally.
Yeah, it is. Well, that's okay then. That's all right.
That's traumatic.
I thought, but their just attitude, I think. I mean, rather than embracing it and support it, and I think this is it, isn't it? I mean, Scotland and Wales are really kind of maintaining it, but in England, it's like it's a joke. It's a joke.
And basically, the issue you've got is that sort of blasé attitude will then put a strain on the health system, and then have to shut us down again.
Well, that's it. But that's what makes me angry, because I mean, I know you really like your freedoms, and you do not want another lockdown. I don't, but I'm happy to put up with it. But a lot of people aren't, and I think again, it's like anything else, like prevention.
Yeah.
If you smoke and you do lots of crap with your body, then when you get to middle age, you're more likely to going to get some side effects of that. And so the same thing here. If you just kind of have this blasé where you can do whatever you want, something's going to fall apart, and that's what they're worried about. I mean, we may have this Omicron where it's, and I love this idea with Omicron now that that it's if you turn the letters around, you've got moronic.
Don't steal that. That was my point.
Right, okay.
Omicron, rearrange letter spells moronic. And the other thing on Twitter was no crimbo.
No crimbo. Well, there you go then.
It's a giant government conspiracy.
Yeah. No crimbo. So there you go.
No, I think it's tricky. I mean, I think like, you know, for me, you know, I wear masks in crowded places. If I'm on a bus, which I'm not now, shops, classrooms to a point. But then sometimes, like, if I can't make my point across, because it's all muffled. So yeah, I think everybody makes their kind of concessions. But I think like tonight, you know, we're all going to arrive masked, and then we'll be shown to our room and sit down. So I think it's basically, I think it's making the effort. I think.
Yeah, well, we're actually recording from a library and a lookout, and hardly anyone's got a mask on, which is quite an interesting one in a public space. So there you go. It's like fingers up to a certain extent. But hey, I feel a bit safer now going onto a bus. I think that's a big thing, because I was getting a bit nervous, especially when I said someone was going to cough over me.
Well, we had that 20-minute podcast last time.
Yeah.
In vivid detail.
Yeah. Well, let's just say I've decided that if someone does it to me this time, I'm going to lamp them.
Okay.
And that's it. And you know, I'm sorry.
Doing community service.
Yes, Mage. Mage. It's the community service over Mage.
Of Mage.
Yeah, of Mage. There you go. That's it. Anyway, go on. What do you want to kind of put in this week then?
Well, so this was actually covered in the podcast that wasn't last week. But,
the podcast that wasn't. I like that. Yeah.
So basically, I watched Red Notice, which is the latest offering from Netflix, which is like ridiculous budget, like 200 million. It's got The Rock in it, Ryan Reynolds, Gal Gadot, and it's like a heist kind of caper thing. Johnson plays an FBI agent, and Ryan Reynolds plays an art thief, and then Gal Gadot plays like the super art thief, and you know it's all hijinks and running around and action scenes and stuff, and it's wonderful. It's like fast food, like you enjoy it at the time, and then afterwards, like you're like,
if you get it,
there's no actual content like you've eaten or any nutritional value.
You won't go in there for a while.
No. So yeah, and it was sort of depressing because I sat there and I was like, you know, yes, it had the obligatory twists and yes. But it just kind of left me just a bit kind of like I've been on a roller coaster, now I was told to get off. You know, that was it. And I just worry, like, filmmaking, the future filmmaking is just like if it's going to be all this sort of calculation and averse risk taking. I know why they do it. It's because they want to, you know, maximise their return because it is a highly risky venture, but it doesn't, I don't think, bode well for particularly innovative or risky projects. I think certainly budget-wise, you know, 200 million, you could make 10 million quite ambitious projects, you know. So, but, you know, I enjoyed it at the time, but you know, it's sad, I think, that things are kind of getting over-engineered and over, because we're going to realise is a lot of franchises start off as original products. So when you've got kind of remakes and things. Now, Red Notice, its credit was actually quote an original film, but it's very familiar of other capers and thrillers of the past. So, but hey, it was good fun to watch.
Can I add that on to that? That's an interesting one with that, because I think that, you know, your point about spending 200 million on something that's safe. Whereas I said there was an article last week about Mike Lee, who had, you know, great British director, who's renowned for his films, you know, groundbreaking on inclusivity and other stuff. He tried to get something made from Netflix, and they said to him, well, you know, what have you got? He said, well, I've got something really good. And they said, nah, because they don't want to take a risk with him, and because, you know, his stuff is social comment, etc., and which I think is sad, because Netflix, I had high hopes for Netflix. So there's some really good stuff on there. You know what I mean?
Especially as the audiences are so kind of
diverse,
and granular. They can actually target people who like that sort of stuff.
They can, of course, they can.
So yeah, I actually understand it more. Like back in the day, where, right, guys, here's a film, go and see it. A Mike Lee film compared to like Avengers would be a risky bet potentially.
Yeah, it would be, yeah.
Or not, because Avengers cost so much money to make. My point is you can now be far more finessed in your thing. So I'm sure there would be.
We would have thought so, but they turned it down, and I think this is sad because you know, when we think of Netflix, often we think of the kind of the prime focal bit, so you know, The Witcher and stuff like that, which I love.
Yeah.
But then I've looked sometimes, and there's some really great kind of obscure dramas and stuff in local languages, like Galician, for example, which I watched and I loved it. You know,
I'd say you know, to Netflix's credit, I think compared to almost any other studio currently, they are certainly taking more risks.
Oh yeah. I'm not disputing that.
You know,
But it was just sad to hear about. With
shame for Mike Lee, of course.
It is a shame, but I mean, also, it may be a sign, and I hope it's not. It may be a sign which is going in the direction of going for these big budget, safe productions. I hope it's not, but what you've just said gives me an inkling that some executives may be kind of wanting to kind of go down that model, and I hope not. I really do hope not.
The interesting thing about Netflix is that they have guaranteed subscribers every single month, so they know where their audience is going to be. I think the problem you've got with studios is we're still actually back to having that theatre with cameras metaphor. Is basically, you shoot something, you edit it, you put it in the cinemas, and hope people will come. And you might have an idea as to how many people will come, but unlike Netflix, where they say, right, we've got 200 million subscribers, we know this portion of the audience loves this kind of movie, and I think they can track people extremely accurately. Studios also use tracking as well, but because they haven't, like, say for example, I'm not like a subscriber to Warner Brothers, so Warner Brothers don't necessarily know that I'm nuts about The Matrix 4, and will definitely see that at least twice. But because I'm not online
to start with,
because I'm not like an online subscriber, they can't check in on me every time I watch something. Whereas Netflix, they have this amazing data where they can see if I get bored and eject from a film halfway through. They can see how much content I watch per week. My habits have changed now, so I'm actually watching a lot less during the week. I'm doing my own stuff now. So so I think this whole subscription and data thing, I think, will put Netflix at a foreseeable advantage for quite some time.
Yeah, but it goes back to the point I made just now that they may be changing their model, and I'll tell you why. Only one reason I can think of is the competition. I mean, you've got Disney Plus, you've got Prime, you've got others coming online. Apple, for example. I know they're small, but the point is that there's more in the market now, and you've got Disney Plus, for example, with its big budget stuff that's obviously, because it's Disney, it can produce, but then it can use it. And I think that may be something that could, as a poking stick, that's doing that to them, but maybe not. I don't know. But
like for me, so I subscribe to Amazon Prime because it's part of the household deal that I get, and Netflix. And that's kind of it. I sometimes dip into all four catch up for the odd program, but it's just like, if I was subscribing to like Warner Brothers separately, Disney separately, it's like, Jesus, like how many subscriptions per month?
Well, how much money?
Need?
But how much money
as well? Yeah,
money.
I think for kids actually, Disney. I mean, they've got a really good kind of sort of aesthetic and tone that if I had young kids, I would probably do Disney Plus actually. Because they're great for kids.
There's some good stuff there. I mean, it doesn't change as much as it could do, but there you go. I think that's because of the limitations of Disney in some respects. But
they're high. I mean, I remember someone worked there at Disneyland Paris or whatever, and they're saying that everything is controlled. Like
it is.
The actors' performances.
They are
like, because their sole mission is to give kids and adults, when they come to Disneyland, the time of their life, and they have such high standards. And I applaud that because that's what people go for, and Disney is part of that magic, but no, it's interesting. I think the world we're in now with entertainment, to think that Blockbuster, which was a world video chain, and there's only one store left now in the whole world, and they chose between going online or setting up a massive store. They set up a massive store because their CEO was a former retail manager, and that's all he understood. And Netflix actually went for the online option, and the rest is history. But it's crazy that a contender brand ended up being
and Blockbusters would have been great.
And Blockbuster, I mean, the symbol, like the blue ticket, the yellow text. I mean, it's classic.
Yeah, it is. No, totally agree.
So then I guess next topic of discussion, I guess, is Christmas. Really, I was doing some
humbug.
Well, yeah, good for you. No, well, 1st of December, so I played the Coca-Cola advert and the song "Wonderful Dream," holidays are coming, all that kind of stuff, and it just reminded me just how many kind of sort of products and branding kind of things you get this time of year. And I was explaining to them actually that Christmas itself is not quite as straightforward a holiday as everybody thinks. So I've done some research once on the historical kind of context surrounding Christmas, and the sort of common conception is Jesus was born at Christmas time, 3 wise men turned up and done the gifts and everything else. However, the actual political reality is more complicated than that. So Constantine was an emperor in like 300, 400 AD, and he basically was tired of pagans and Christians beating each other up during the year, and pagans celebrated their festival at the end of the year called Saturnalia, and Christ actually, believe it or not, you can look this up, was born in March or that area of time. So he decided to stop them beating themselves up, each other up, was to combine the Christmas or invent a sort of Christmas celebration at the same time as Saturnalia. So what it meant is that both parties were otherwise engaged.
Yeah.
So he actually used it as kind of like a political kind of peace offering for both of those particular sects at the time. And that's quite a shift to think that something actually happened has then actually been moved because it's more convenient to celebrate it later. And all the kind of iconography that we get, Saint Nicholas. A lot of people, obviously Christmas includes the name Christ Mass, but actually Saint Nicholas is actually probably one of the most enduring, even more enduring figures. A lot of kids will be making their Christmas list to Santa, and not really thinking about Jesus that much.
No, but St Nicholas, you loses his Christian flavour as well, because you've got Santa. Yeah. Whereas if you go to someone, when I lived in the Netherlands, they still celebrate St Nicholas Day, which is in I think the 12th of December, and it's
76th.
76. Sorry, yeah. England, I don't know. No. Well, anyway, it's early, kind of early to mid. That's right. It's 6. That's right. Anyway, what I found over there is that it's very much about children giving gifts, and when it comes to actual Christmas, 25th, it's a much more Christian holiday, and I think that's quite a good idea. I mean, I've always liked that because it seems to make sense. I think to me over there, you know what I mean. I mean, don't get me wrong, over here, a different culture, but it does raise the issue of that even though we talk about St Nicholas there is defined like Santa. There's a strong correlation. Whereas in this country, that's lost. You know what I mean? It's St Nick and stuff comes into it, but it's more about Santa.
Santa's is the kind of end commercialisation of St Nicholas himself.
Yeah.
Historically, Saint Nick wore green robes. Actually,
he did,
but Coca-Cola turned up and appropriated for the adverts, made him red and fat, and it's brilliant because Coca-Cola, the colour of Santa is the colour of the label on the bottle. They tied it all in with the music, the trucks, the snow, and it's brilliant because it's like Cadbury's with the colour purple. It's like Coca-Cola colour red. You're getting reminders of it, whether consciously or not. And that's why it's brilliant.
Yeah, but we've also got to remember that I think about 40 years, back in the mid-late 19th century, there's a famous poem from America that basically set up everything regarding Santa and his sleigh, and the kind of reindeer and everything else. I forget the name of the author, but it basically set the agenda for the stereotype that we associate with him coming from the north with his sleigh and everything, and then Coca-Cola just added to that. But I mean, I do remember that that St Nicholas.
See, that doesn't make any sense either. Well, so you got like a saint sitting on a sled,
but it wasn't a sled, it's skin.
Being towed through the air magically by reindeer. I mean, it's brilliant how these weird little portions of story bolt together to make something.
Because if I'm correct, you've done your research, but if I'm correct, St Nicholas was I think the bishop of part of Turkey. And I mean the whole story with him was very much about saving 2 young women. And 2 girls actually from possible prostitution and other things, safety, and he gave some gifts to them.
I think they had their stockings hanging out on the window and they filled up with gold coins.
That's right, gold coins, and saved them from that.
So they could get married as a dowry.
That's right, But what was interesting, I think, with that is that how, I think we mentioned this before we started, that St Nicholas isn't just obviously Christmas. It has connotations of fishermen, I understand. It has, obviously prostitutes, children, saint, from the religious aspect of it.
Well, he's always been, a benevolent kind of sort of figure throughout the year. It's just people only seem to remember him.
Yeah.
the commercialised version of him around Christmas. But yeah, Saints are there all year, you know. But it's just this time of year, everyone's like, whoa, Saint Nick, you know.
Yeah.
And you know, it's interesting the whole Saint Nick thing because it's a sort of an invisible parental figure that parents will say, well, if you're not being good, then Santa won't get you this. So it's a bargaining chip that parents use time and time and time again. And more power. If that's what they need, then you know.
But actually, you touched on something really brilliant. I saw a little cartoon in a magazine I was reading this week, and there's these two people walking along the road, and they got their heads down, and there's this great big poster on the wall, and it says something like Santa's watching you, and it was a much more darker, shadowy figured Santa. You know, children be good or children be bad. He's watching you, and so it just turned all the way. It was brilliant. It was fantastic. So yeah, I think some of that is beginning to fade regarding being a good child.
I think it depends on the family.
So it's on the family, yeah, but I'm saying it's beginning to fade a little bit because you know when I was a kid in the 60s and 70s it was very much pushed, and I think for whatever reasons that is beginning to fade a little bit. And as you said,
I think it's a bit sad because then they're just replacing it with TikTok or something else.
Yeah, they came to TikTok. Yeah,
I know. I think my parents were big with it up until sort of. When I hit double figures in age, and I think it's something that I'll maintain.
I love Christmas
with my children because I think it does help parenting having that thing at the end of the year. So I think sometimes because it's difficult to constructively incentivize your child. I think sometimes. So I think having that as a potential. There is this other person out there who's watching you. I think it's interesting, and it's certainly when me and my brother were growing up. We discuss it at length. If Santa had seen us do something.
Yeah, but you see, you mentioned the Romans. I think we've got to put things into a British context as well. Is that obviously we had the winter solstice on the 21st.
Yeah.
And that was a pagan festival. So again, in Britain, that was a reaction to that. In the same way that it was a kind of All Saints' Day was a reaction to the kind of the Celtic festival at the end of October. Yeah. So the Christians were very clever on that. They wanted to kind of bring in these other groups, but at the same time they wanted to put down their own kind of banner and statement. So the way to do that is to kind of sometimes make something look evil, but then at the same time allow it to go ahead, So yeah.
I'm always slightly sad when people say, oh, I don't celebrate this or whatever. And it's just like, I know there might be personal reasons, but it's just like, can you imagine life without these festivals that we have?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, I said to my students the other day, imagine, life, we almost had it with lockdown, but imagine life without Christmas, Easter, Father's Day, Mother's Day, all these things. The year would be so boring.
Yeah,
and Christmas is unique because it has actually such a long build up. So it's now like 3 or 4 weeks away. So you're listening to the music. I'm wearing my Christmas jumper now. We've got a Christmas meal tonight. I'm listening to music in the car. I'm putting the decorations up this weekend. It's like a whole month of kind of preparations and stuff. And really, I can't think of anything else like it. Like maybe a birthday party, maybe a couple of weeks in advance. Easter, it's not really a big deal for me, but maybe like a few days before I might think about. I don't know. Christmas is a huge, and I think it's a nice way to bookend the year because I think people are more reflective because you're inside. It's darker. I think people are more sociable actually, like going out parties and that kind of thing. So I think it's an important way to end the year. I just wonder really what life would be about because it's a festival of. And for me, I don't celebrate it really for religious reasons. Like as I've gotten older, the religious connotations has meant less and less, if I'm honest. For me, what it's about is spending time with your family, having some chill out time, catching up on things, having some good food, going for walks, and I always look forward to it. I mean,
I think again we said this before. I think a lot of it is a generational difference. I mean, when I was a kid, I remember nothing but festivals all the year through. So, Whitsun was big. We'd have Bun Sunday down in Cornwall on the island there with cream teas and stuff, celebrated Whitsun. we had Guy Fawkes, it was big, big outdoor parties, all the rest of it. Halloween was quite big, not like it is now, isn't commercialised. But then we have other things. We had, for example, the carnival in Glastonbury that was big. I mean, 150 to 200 floats, going through the streets, all code and stuff. All these things that I remember. And even then, my mother's generation, there was even more festivals like Fermo, Allen Tide, all these ones in Cornwall that now kind of, they're trying to be revived. So, but Christmas was the biggest one, and Easter as well. But there was other things there, and I think multiculturalism is kind of watered it down because there's so nothing competing. So some of those groups will celebrate, which is great. But as you're saying, that the secularization possibly has changed it and pushed some out of them, and or they become secular. Where, like Santa Claus, the religious side is gone. Where in the Netherlands, it's still there because you've got a big Bible Belt, for example, there. So I totally agree. I think
as a country, like, I don't think we're nowhere as Christian as we used to be. I think there's some other countries where
see the churches
is very powerful still. If countries where the church is powerful, I think it's a hugely significant event. I think over here it's still significant, but in a different way. I think it's more commercial.
But the other thing is you got the controversy that comes with that. I mean, we talk about St. Nicholas Day in Netherlands. Well, you've got things like Black Peter. There's been a battle of Black Peter at the moment. When I went there, I was actually freaked out.
And people would Krampus as well. Monsters.
But it's the Black Peter that caused all the problems. It's to do with
he would take away the kids. In the original mythology, he would take away the kids to his pits and have them on chains. Like they used to walk around with chains and horns and stuff. And he was like his evil sidekick.
He was
in the original mythology.
Yeah, like a slave.
Unfortunately, the PR campaign is so much more in St. Nicholas's favour. But he does exist. Yeah. And over time, he's actually become more extreme because you got Black Peter, and then Krampus is like this huge, like, horned demon which they've used for horror movies, which is brilliant. And I think the idea is basically if you're not good, then you get Krampus for Christmas.
Yeah, that's right, exactly.
So that would scare me if I was growing up. Right, we're approaching end of time, people. So, enjoy your Christmas preparations, and we'll do a few more before Christmas.
Yeah, we will do. I think we got to. Hopefully, with our sound and stuff, would be okay.
Yeah. All right. Take care, folks.
Bye.
Bye.
Purge completed.